The tranquility of Earth was shattered without warning. One fateful morning, as the world awoke to its usual routine, the sky grew dark. A fleet of alien ships, larger and more powerful than anything Earth had ever witnessed, descended from the heavens. These invaders, known as the Clixians, were an ancient race feared across the galaxy for their advanced technology and ruthless nature. They had been watching Earth for years, studying humanity's movements, their weaknesses, and their way of life. For months, they prepared for this moment, confident that their highly advanced weaponry would easily crush the human race. They saw Earth as a primitive, unimportant world. Its inhabitants were nothing more than ants beneath their boots. The Clixians' strategy was simple: bombard Earth's major cities, break the human spirit, and then land to finish the job. Nothing could stop them, or so they thought. As the alien ships began their relentless assault, bombarding everything in sight with powerful beams that disintegrated buildings and crushed entire cities, it seemed like their victory was inevitable. The air was filled with explosions, smoke, and dust, and chaos erupted in every corner of the planet. Humanity, caught off guard and outmatched by the Clixians' overwhelming firepower, appeared helpless. The people screamed in terror as they scrambled for shelter, and governments struggled to mount any kind of effective defense. There were no answers, no plan to fight back. It felt like the end had come, but in the midst of the destruction, something strange began to unfold. The Clixians, in their arrogance, had not anticipated what was about to happen. A signal, deep from the far reaches of space, began to reach Earth. It was a series of strange frequencies, patterns that humans had never encountered before. The signal was so powerful, so precise, that it pierced through the chaos of the attack. It wasn't just a warning, it was a message sent specifically to Earth. It was as if the universe itself had intervened, offering humanity a chance to survive. It wasn't just an ordinary signal, it was a blueprint. Hidden in the depths of the message was the knowledge to unlock an incredible technology that had been buried beneath Earth's surface for centuries, forgotten by all, including the Clixians. Humanity, though caught off guard, had not been completely defenseless. There were whispers of a hidden project, one that had been kept secret for generations. It was known only to a select few, the highest levels of Earth's governments, top-secret military officials, and a handful of scientists. These people had been working in the shadows, harnessing the knowledge from the mysterious signal that had been received decades ago. What the Clixians didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this very moment, though no one had dared to hope it would come so soon. The signal, originating from an unknown source far beyond the galaxy, revealed the location of an ancient device buried beneath Earth. This device, later known as the Heart of Soul, was the key to humanity's survival. For centuries, it had remained hidden, waiting for the day when its true purpose would be revealed. It was not just a weapon, it was an energy source so powerful, so advanced, that it could manipulate gravity, time, and space itself. It was a force unlike anything the Clixians had ever encountered. No one knew exactly who had left it there, but its potential was immense. And now it was humanity's last hope. As the Clixian fleet continued its assault, something changed. Reports began to come in from across the world. Small pockets of resistance had emerged, but this was no ordinary resistance. Using technology that was impossible for the Clixians to comprehend, humanity began to fight back. At first, the Clixians believed it to be a fluke, a coincidence. But as the attacks continued, they realized the truth. Humanity wasn't as helpless as they had assumed. The Clixians had expected Earth to fall quickly under the weight of their assault, but they were wrong. Every time they thought they had crushed the humans, the resistance adapted, striking back harder. It was as if Earth itself was defending its people. The Clixians, shaken by the unexpected strength of their enemies, started to question what they were up against. They hadn't counted on this, and now, for the first time, they were unsure if their victory was guaranteed. The mysterious signal had ignited something deep within humanity. An unknown potential had been unlocked. The Clixians were beginning to realize that the humans they had underestimated were far more dangerous than they could ever have imagined. They had made a grave mistake. Earth wasn't just fighting back, it was evolving. The world wasn't helpless. It was preparing for a fight that would change the course of history forever. The tension in the air grew thicker as humanity's hidden strength began to emerge. The Clixians had expected to destroy Earth, but now they were beginning to question their own strategy. What had they awakened in the humans? And what would happen if they underestimated them any further? The war for Earth was only just beginning, and the Clixians were in for a shock they never saw coming. Amid the devastation, as alien ships blotted out the sky, humanity's desperate scramble to survive seemed futile. Cities lay in ruins, and the once bustling streets were filled with panic and chaos. Yet, in the shadows, far beneath the surface, a different battle was unfolding. Deep underground, in high-security bunkers hidden from prying eyes, a group of the world's most brilliant scientists and military leaders gathered. They had been preparing for this moment for years, although no one had ever anticipated it would come so suddenly. The alien attack, while a shocking blow, had ignited something within the human race, something that had been waiting to be unleashed. The scientists, their faces pale from exhaustion but determined, worked feverishly around a massive, sealed vault deep beneath the Earth. Inside, a forgotten relic from Earth's distant past lay dormant, a device older than humanity itself, buried beneath the surface long before the first Clixian scouts ever set foot on Earth. It had been discovered centuries ago, hidden away in a remote corner of the world, long before humanity had even learned to harness the power of fire. The device was an artifact, a mystery that no one fully understood. However, its true purpose was about to become humanity's greatest weapon. This object, known as the Heart of Soul, was unlike anything the Clixians had ever encountered. It was a relic from an ancient civilization, one that had perished long before any other species had come to power in the galaxy. At first, Earth's leaders had kept its existence a closely guarded secret, for they knew the truth: the Heart of Soul was not just a power source, it was a force of unimaginable power. This device could manipulate the very fabric of reality itself, controlling gravity, bending time, and warping space. It was an energy source so potent, so extraordinary, that the mere knowledge of its existence could change the balance of the entire galaxy. In the wrong hands, it could mean the end of countless worlds. The decision to keep such a weapon hidden was not made lightly. Humanity, aware of the dangers of such power, had vowed to protect it from outsiders, knowing that any being who discovered its existence would stop at nothing to claim it for themselves. Earth's governments, military leaders, and top scientists worked in secret for decades, ensuring that the Heart of Soul remained concealed, its powers dormant, until the day humanity truly needed it. Now, that day had come. In the heart of the underground facility, a small team of engineers and military strategists gathered around a massive terminal. As the countdown reached 0, the Heart of Soul began to hum with energy. The once dormant device started to pulse with light, its surface glowing faintly, as though it was awakening from a deep slumber. The room filled with a low, resonating hum, and the air grew thick with anticipation. The team held their breath, knowing that the fate of Earth rested on their success. The Heart of Soul was connected to a series of advanced machines designed to harness its power. The device was more than just a simple artifact. It was a complex system that needed to be carefully activated. For years, humanity had studied the heart's intricate mechanisms, but its full potential had never been tapped. Now, with the alien fleet bearing down on Earth, there was no time for hesitation. With a single command, the power of the heart was unleashed, and the machine's hum grew louder, more intense. The ground beneath their feet began to vibrate as the energy surged through the facility. As the Heart of Soul's power reached its peak, something incredible happened. The very fabric of reality seemed to bend. Gravity distorted in the room, making it feel as though the air itself was thickening, pressing down on them. Time itself seemed to stretch and warp as the device pulsed with an energy unlike anything the world had ever seen. The human team, eyes wide with both fear and awe, realized that they had just activated something beyond their understanding. This was no ordinary weapon. The Heart of Soul had the power to change the course of the war, and perhaps the fate of the entire galaxy. With the heart now fully powered, the scientists and military leaders quickly moved to implement the next phase of their plan. They knew that the Clickskins, with their superior technology, would not fall easily. But this was no longer just a fight for Earth's survival. It was a battle for the future of the galaxy itself. The Heart of Soul was Earth's last hope, a weapon that could either save them or doom them all. As the team prepared to deploy the Heart's full capabilities, they couldn't help but wonder what other forces might be watching. The Clickskins were not the only threat lurking in the universe, and the Heart of Soul, with its immense power, would undoubtedly attract attention from other corners of the galaxy. Could humanity control such a force, or would they become the next victims of the very power they had unlocked? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain: Earth was no longer defenseless. The world had a weapon, and it was a weapon unlike any other. And with that, the fight for humanity's survival entered a new and far more dangerous phase. The Heart of Soul had awakened, and its power would soon be tested. The world watched in silent anticipation as the Heart of Soul hummed with energy, its immense power flowing through the veins of humanity's newfound technology. For decades, Earth had lived in the shadows, unaware of the potential this ancient device held. Now, with the alien Clixian fleet poised to finish their invasion, humanity had no choice but to reveal its hand. The first strike was coming, and it would be unlike anything the Clixians could have ever expected. In underground bunkers, scientists and military leaders monitored the deployment of Earth's new weaponry. Human ships, now powered by the energy from the Heart of Soul, lifted off from Earth's surface. These vessels, previously outdated and outclassed by Clixian technology, now hummed with a strange, powerful energy. They were faster, more agile, and far more destructive than anything the alien fleet had encountered. As the ships launched, they began to exhibit abilities that no one could have predicted. Gravity around them bent, allowing the ships to perform impossible maneuvers that defied the laws of physics. The very fabric of space seemed to warp around them, allowing for instant acceleration and maneuvering that left the Clixians stunned. At first, the Clixians didn't know what to make of this sudden turn of events. Their massive fleet had dominated Earth for days without serious resistance, and now, out of nowhere, humanity was fighting back with an unexpected fury. Their weapons, once powerful enough to wipe out entire cities, were now being turned against them with devastating force. The Clixians' confidence began to waver as their ships were struck by energy blasts so concentrated that even their most advanced shields struggled to hold up. Human ships swooped in, striking at their weak points with precision that was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. As the battle escalated, the Clixian commanders quickly assessed the situation. They believed it was a temporary fluke, something humanity could not sustain. After all, the Clixians had vast numbers, thousands of ships, each one more advanced than anything Earth could produce. They believed that their technology and superior firepower would eventually overwhelm the humans. But they underestimated something far more dangerous than any weapon: humanity's resilience. What the Clixians didn't understand was that humanity's strength wasn't in their technology alone. It was in their unyielding will to survive. Unlike the Clixians, who were a cold and calculating species, humanity's strength came from something deeper, something far more difficult to quantify. Humans fought not just for survival, but for each other. They fought for their homes, their families, their future. It was a drive that the Clixians had never fully understood. Their tactics had always been about overwhelming force, but now, against a foe that fought with heart, they began to see how fragile their dominance truly was. Humanity's fleet, now empowered by the Heart of Soul, pressed forward relentlessly. The Clixians' ships were taken by surprise, many of them unable to react fast enough to the sudden barrage of attacks. The human fighters struck with speed and precision, weaving in and out of the Clixian formations like shadows. The Clixians' advanced sensors couldn't track the humans fast enough, and soon reports flooded in that entire squadrons were being wiped out. The tide was shifting, and for the first time, the Clixian fleet began to retreat, unwilling to risk losing more ships to this unexpected, new threat. The humans had been pushed to the edge, but they had not broken. Instead, they had adapted, and their adaptation was the weapon that the Clixians had never counted on. Every tactic the Clixians tried was met with a counter-strategy from the humans. They had no overwhelming numbers, no massive fleet to send into battle, but they had something far more valuable, the heart of soul, a source of power that defied all logic and reason, and the undying determination to protect their world. In the heat of the battle, as Clixian ships exploded in the distance and the sky lit up with the brilliance of Earth's newfound might, humanity's leaders knew this was just the beginning. The Clixians might have regrouped, might have reinforced their fleets, but they had learned one crucial thing: humanity would never give up. With each strike, with each new wave of human fighters, the Clixians' perception of Earth changed. They had assumed that Earth was a vulnerable, primitive world. Now, they were learning that humanity had the power to adapt, to innovate, and to fight back with a ferocity that no alien invasion had ever encountered before. As the human forces continued their counterattack, one thing became clear: the Clixians had made a fatal miscalculation. This was not a war they could win with sheer numbers and technology. It was a war they would have to win against the very spirit of humanity. And that, the Clixians soon realized, was something they had never been prepared for. The battle for Earth was far from over, but humanity had just landed its first decisive blow, and the universe would never be the same again. The Clixians were not a species to be underestimated. Their initial surprise at humanity's counterattack had worn off, replaced by a seething determination to crush the resistance once and for all. They believed that their initial advantage, superior firepower, numbers, and technology, was enough to overwhelm Earth's last stand. But they had yet to fully grasp one critical truth: human ingenuity. Now, the Clixians were about to make their move, a full-scale counteroffensive aimed at annihilating Earth's defenses in one crushing blow. The centerpiece of their counterattack was the Avoranax, the flagship of the Clixian fleet. A behemoth of metal and power, the Avoranax was the pride of the Clixian armada. It was equipped with an indestructible force field that could withstand the most powerful of attacks and weapons, so devastating that they had wiped out entire civilizations in the blink of an eye. Its massive cannons, capable of firing energy blasts that could level continents, were aimed directly at Earth's last bastion of defense. The Clixians were confident that, with this weapon at the helm, they could crush the human resistance in one fell swoop. Earth's defensive forces, though bolstered by the heart of soul, still seemed small in comparison. The humans had no illusions about the challenge ahead. The Avoranax was an overwhelming force, but it wasn't invincible. As the Clixian flagship descended through Earth's atmosphere, the sky split with the roar of its engines, sending shockwaves through the air. It was a sight that struck fear into the hearts of all who saw it. The Avoranax was coming for them, and this time there would be no room for escape. But the humans were ready. Using the technology derived from the heart of soul, Earth's fleet had developed a defense system like no other. The heart's power allowed the humans to harness not only energy, but also the ability to adapt. Human ships and weapons, initially designed to fight a simple battle, had evolved into a living, breathing defense network, capable of responding to any attack with unparalleled speed and precision. Each time the Clixians launched a strike, the humans were ready, adjusting their tactics in real time to counter the Clixian advances. At first, the Clixians thought this was merely a minor inconvenience. They had faced resistance before and crushed it with ease. But as their first wave of attacks met with unexpected resistance, something changed. Human ships, once mere pests on the battlefield, were now outmaneuvering them at every turn. The Axoranax fired its devastating energy beams, each one powerful enough to obliterate entire cities. Yet time and time again, the human defenses absorbed the blow or avoided it entirely. The Clixians' sensors registered strange anomalies, unable to comprehend how the humans could adapt so quickly. Their strategy was being thwarted, and for the first time, the Clixians were forced to rethink their approach. It became clear that humanity had developed a defense system that was not only capable of absorbing incoming fire, but could also predict and counterattack in real time. Every time the Clixians adjusted their offensive strategy, the humans responded with a new, unexpected tactic. It was as if Earth's defenses had become alive, constantly evolving to meet each threat. The Clixians launched wave after wave of attacks, trying to break through the human defenses, but each time they were met with more resistance, more unpredictability. The Clixians, unable to adjust fast enough, found themselves drawn into a deadly game of cat and mouse. As the Axoranax hovered over Earth's surface, the Clixians made a shocking discovery. The human resistance was not just reactive, it was proactive. The Heart of Soul had given humanity not only the power to defend, but also the ability to outthink and outmaneuver their enemies. The human fleet was no longer simply fighting for survival, they were fighting to outsmart their invaders at every step. The Clixian commanders watched in disbelief as their flagship's energy cannons fired upon human ships, only to see them slip away at the last second or deploy countermeasures that rendered their attacks useless. For the first time in the war, the Clixians found themselves on the defensive. The Axoranax, once thought to be invincible, was now being pushed to its limits. Its shields flickered under the constant barrage of human counterattacks, and the Clixian fleet began to take heavy losses. Frustration began to seep into the ranks of the Clixian leadership. They had expected Earth to crumble beneath their superior might, but now they were facing a formidable adversary. Every time they thought they had the upper hand, humanity adapted. The tables had turned. The humans, once outmatched, were now dictating the pace of the battle. The Clixians' confidence faltered as they realized that they were fighting a war unlike any they had fought before. Earth's resistance was not just a battle of firepower, it was a battle of wits, and humanity was winning. The Clixians' counteroffensive, designed to crush the human spirit, was now faltering. They had underestimated the human resolve, and they were paying the price. As the battle raged on, one thing became clear. The Clixians had not only misjudged humanity's strength, but also its ability to adapt and outthink their enemies. The game had changed, and Earth was no longer just fighting for survival, they were fighting to win. The war between humanity and the Clixians had reached a critical point. The once overwhelming Clixian forces were now being pushed back, and Earth's defenders, empowered by the mysterious Heart of Soul, was striking with an ingenuity that had caught the aliens off guard. As the battle raged on, humanity began to gain the upper hand. But in the midst of all this, an unexpected twist would shake the foundations of the conflict. A Clixian infiltrator was captured during a skirmish on the outskirts of a besieged human city. It was a rare success. A Clixian scout who had slipped through the lines and was now in human custody. The alien was disoriented and badly wounded, but it was still alive. The humans, always wary of alien technology and tactics, knew they couldn't afford to waste this opportunity. They brought the Clixian to an underground facility where interrogators, both military and scientific, began to work. They were prepared for the usual questions: how many ships, what weapons? But what they didn't expect was the revelation that would change everything. As the interrogation unfolded, it became clear that the Clixian soldier was not the typical invader. It spoke in broken, hesitant sentences, its eyes filled with fear and regret. The humans, sensing something different, pushed harder, not for tactical information, but for something deeper. And then, in a moment of vulnerability, the Clixian revealed the truth. The Clixians had once been a peaceful race, dedicated to exploration and knowledge. They were a society that had valued harmony and cooperation, believing that all sentient species had the potential for greatness. But their peaceful existence had been shattered by an ancient and malevolent force that lurked in the far reaches of the galaxy. This force, an entity so powerful that it could manipulate entire civilizations, had seen the Clixians as a threat to its dominance and had slowly twisted their society, corrupting their leadership and turning them into unwitting pawns. The truth was even more staggering. The heart of Soul, the very device humanity had uncovered and now used to fight back, was not just a source of untold power. It was a weapon designed to nullify the dark force that had taken control of the Clixians and manipulated them into launching their attack on Earth. The Heart of Soul had the power to disrupt the entity's control, to sever its influence over the Clixians, and more importantly, to prevent it from ever taking control of Earth or any other world for good. The Clixians, upon discovering the heart's true nature, had been ordered not just to conquer Earth, but to destroy the device before humanity could ever activate it. They believed that if the Heart of Soul remained intact and its powers unleashed, it would not only free the Clixians from the entity's control, but also give Earth and its inhabitants a chance to resist the looming darkness that had already begun to spread across the galaxy. The Clixians had not been attacking Earth for resources or out of hatred. They had been driven by a deep-seated fear of the Heart's power. They had come to Earth with the intention of preventing the device from being used, believing that their survival depended on keeping it hidden forever. As the interrogator digested this revelation, it was clear that everything they had believed about the Clixians had been a lie. The Clixians were not invaders. They were victims, manipulated by a force far more dangerous than humanity had ever imagined. The truth sent shockwaves through the human ranks. The enemy they had been fighting was not some ruthless conqueror, but a race struggling to break free from an ancient evil. And in that moment, a choice had to be made. Could humanity continue fighting the Clixians, knowing the truth, or could they form an unlikely alliance to confront the true enemy that had set this conflict in motion? The news spread quickly through human command, and a debate erupted. Some believed that the Clixians could never be trusted. After all, they had invaded Earth and caused immeasurable suffering. Others argued that if the Clixians were truly fighting to break free from the dark force controlling them, then they were as much a victim as humanity itself. If they were to succeed in stopping the true threat, they would need to unite their forces, human and Clixian alike. But could they trust an enemy that had come so close to destroying them? The Clixian infiltrator, now a captive, pleaded with the humans, revealing that the dark force had already begun to move again, gathering strength in the shadows. It was an entity that could bend entire civilizations to its will, an intelligence so ancient and powerful that it could destroy entire worlds without a single shot being fired. If the Heart of Soul wasn't activated in time, both the Clixians and humanity would be at its mercy. In the silence that followed, the weight of the decision became clear. It was no longer just a matter of survival. It was a fight for the future of all sentient life. Earth, with its Heart of Soul, had the power to stand against the darkness, but only if both species, human and Clixian, could set aside their differences and work together. The true enemy, the force that had manipulated both races, was still out there waiting. And if they didn't act now, it might be too late. In that moment, the battlefield shifted once more. Humanity and the Clixians were no longer just enemies. There were two races fighting for the same cause. The question was no longer if they could defeat the invaders, but whether they could trust each other long enough to defeat the true threat. The galaxy's fate hung in the balance. The decision to form an alliance was not an easy one. Trust was a fragile thing, especially after the Clixians had invaded Earth, ravaging cities and causing untold damage. Yet, in the face of a threat far greater than either humanity or the Clixians had ever imagined, the necessity of working together became undeniable. The Clixian rebels, who had been secretly fighting against the dark force manipulating their people, were just as desperate as humanity. They too wanted freedom, not just from the enemy's control, but from the centuries of fear and subjugation it had imposed upon them. Reluctantly, the alliance formed, a fragile pact between the humans and the Clixian rebels. The stakes were too high to ignore. Together, they would have to strike at the heart of the darkness and destroy the ancient force that threatened to enslave both their worlds. The mission was clear. They had to journey to a distant star system, far beyond known space, where the Dark Force's ancient fleet lay hidden. It was an uncharted area of space, a region where few ships had ventured and even fewer had returned. The Clixian rebels, with their knowledge of the Dark Force's operations, had mapped the route, but they had also warned the humans that the journey would be perilous. The Dark Force was not just a mindless enemy, it was an intelligence, one that had existed for eons, laying traps and testing the mettle of anyone who dared to challenge it. As the joint fleet of humans and Clixians prepared for their journey, the weight of the mission settled on everyone's shoulders. The humans, fueled by their desire to protect their world, and the Clixians, driven by the hope of freeing their people from the unseen force that had manipulated them for so long, shared a common goal. But the path ahead was treacherous. It wasn't just the Clixians' fleet they had to worry about. It was the traps and horrors set by the Dark Force that awaited them in the dark reaches of space. The journey began under the cover of night, with the stars stretching endlessly before them. Tension hung thick in the air. Both species kept a wary eye on one another, knowing that a single misstep could unravel everything. They moved in silence, navigating through the vast emptiness, until the first signs of danger emerged. The darkness ahead wasn't just empty, it was alive, pulsing with an unnatural energy. Something ancient stirred. They didn't have to wait long before the first attack came. A sudden wave of cosmic energy surged toward them, emanating from an invisible force field that shimmered like a mirage. The humans, relying on their adaptability, were the first to react. They had developed a unique defense system, capable of detecting and neutralizing energy anomalies. The Clixians, though, were less prepared. Their fleet was caught off guard, and several ships were struck by the force, their shields flaring up before collapsing under the strain. In the chaos, the human forces swiftly adapted, using their knowledge of the heart of Sol to direct the energy pulses away from the fleet. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it bought them precious time. As they pushed forward, the attacks grew more sophisticated. The Dark Force had anticipated this move, and it wasn't going to make it easy. It unleashed a series of deadly traps, each more complex than the last. Energy vortexes that twisted space, gravitational anomalies that threatened to crush ships into the void, and dark tendrils of unknown origin that reached out from the shadows of space. But humanity's ingenuity was their greatest asset. They adapted faster than the Dark Force could predict, using the very traps to their advantage. Human ships deployed advanced drone fighters to navigate the gravitational anomalies, while Clixian rebels used their superior knowledge of the Dark Force's technology to hack into the ancient traps, turning them against the enemy. It was a constant battle of wits, a game of survival against an enemy that had designed its traps over millennia. The real horrors, however, came when they encountered the ancient cosmic entities that served as the Dark Force's protectors. These entities were more than just ships or weapons. They were living, sentient beings made of pure, swirling energy, their forms shifting and changing with each passing moment. They were the remnants of civilizations long destroyed, warped by the Dark Force into mindless protectors of its will. As they appeared in the depths of space, their massive forms flickered like shadows in the void, and their presence was enough to send chills through the bones of even the most battle-hardened warriors. The battle against the cosmic horrors was unlike anything the humans or the Clixians had ever faced. Conventional weapons had no effect on them. It took everything the humans had learned from their time with the Heart of Sol to figure out how to fight back. They realized that these entities were connected to the very fabric of space itself, and that by using the heart's power to manipulate gravity and time, they could destabilize the entities, pulling them into shifting time loops where their energy was drained. It was a risky maneuver, but it worked. One by one, the cosmic horrors were pulled from the battlefield, their energy dissipating into the ether as the combined human and Clixian forces pressed on. The cost was high, though several ships were lost, and both sides suffered casualties. But as the last of the Dark Protectors was defeated, a tense silence fell over the fleet. The path to the Dark Force's ancient fleet was now open. The alliance, though fragile, had proven its worth. Humanity's adaptability, combined with the Clixians' knowledge of the Dark Force, had allowed them to survive the impossible. But they knew the hardest part was yet to come. The real battle, against the true force that had manipulated their fates, was still ahead, and no one knew what awaited them in the heart of darkness. But they had come this far, and they would not turn back now. The final battle loomed on the edge of the galaxy, where the Dark Force's fleet had amassed. The skies crackled with the energy of a war unlike any that had ever been fought. Both the humans and the Clixians, now united in their shared goal, prepared to face their greatest challenge yet. They knew this would be a fight to the death. Either they would destroy the Dark Force or be consumed by it. Their combined fleets, bolstered by the power of the Heart of Soul, moved into position. The humans, with their unmatched determination, and the Clixians, with their deep knowledge of the Dark Force, had formed a fragile but powerful alliance. They had only one chance to strike, and they knew it. As they entered the vast expanse of the Dark Force's territory, the space around them seemed to warp and twist. The air crackled with an unnatural energy, and every ship felt as if it were being pulled into the very fabric of reality itself. The Dark Force, an ancient intelligence beyond comprehension, was not just a fleet waiting to fight. It was a presence, a force of nature that could bend the laws of space and time to its will. The fleet of ancient ships it commanded were like nothing the humans or Clixians had ever encountered. Massive, living entities made from the void itself, capable of shifting form and reality at a whim. It was an intelligence that defied logic, an entity that existed outside the boundaries of what they knew. It had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations, and now it had set its sights on Earth. The battle began in a chaotic blur. The Dark Force's fleet opened fire with energy blasts that distorted the very fabric of space, and the human and Clixian ships responded with everything they had. The Heart of Soul pulsed with energy, providing a temporary advantage. The humans, using their adaptive technology, managed to dodge the most devastating attacks, while the Clixians unleashed their most advanced weaponry. Together, they were able to hold their own against the seemingly insurmountable power of the Dark Force. But even as they fought valiantly, it became clear that they were not fighting just a fleet. They were fighting an intelligence that was far beyond their understanding. The true nature of the Dark Force was revealed as it began to attack not just the ships, but the very minds of those who faced it. The dark intelligence reached out with tendrils of thought, twisting the perceptions of the human and Clixian forces, making them question reality itself. It was an enemy that could manipulate time, space, and the very fabric of existence. It wasn't bound by physical laws, it existed outside of them. For a moment, it seemed as though the war was lost before it had even truly begun. The Dark Force was everywhere, in every ship, in every mind. Its presence was suffocating. But humanity, ever resourceful, refused to yield. They had faced the impossible before and survived, and they would do it again. The Clixian rebels, still driven by their hope of freedom, fought alongside them with renewed vigor. They knew that to defeat the Dark Force, they would have to do something no one had ever attempted: combine their collective knowledge, their technology, and their sheer willpower into one final desperate strike. It was then that the unthinkable happened. The Heart of Soul, already a weapon of unimaginable power, was activated one last time. But this time, humanity would not use it just as a weapon. They would pour everything they had into it. All their strength, their ingenuity, their determination, everything. They merged the heart's power with the combined technology of both species, fusing their minds together in a single focused force. It was a gamble, a final roll of the dice. As the Heart of Soul pulsed to life, its energy ripped through space, converging into a single beam of concentrated force. The explosion that followed was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. It was as if the very universe itself had shuddered in response, and a wave of energy spread outward, racing across the galaxy. The blast was so powerful that it tore through the Dark Force's fleet with ease, obliterating ships, collapsing the warped space around them, and scattering the ancient fleet into nothingness. The Dark Force, unable to withstand the combined might of humanity's will and the heart of Sol, was shattered, its presence fractured beyond repair. In the silence that followed, the battlefield was empty. The Dark Force was gone. The galaxy had been saved. The survivors, human and Clixian alike, stood in stunned silence, their ships floating in the aftermath of the explosion. The cost had been immense. Many lives had been lost, and countless ships had been destroyed. But they had won. They had fought not just for survival, but for freedom. The alliance between humanity and the Clixians had forged a new path forward, a path where they no longer saw each other as enemies, but as allies in the fight for the future of the galaxy. As the dust settled, humanity's victory was apparent. They had turned the tide of the war not only for themselves, but for all sentient life in the galaxy. The Clixians, forever grateful for humanity's bravery and ingenuity, swore to never again underestimate the resilience of the human spirit. The galaxy would remember this battle. Word of humanity's victory spread quickly, and soon every civilization in the galaxy knew humanity was not a species to be trifled with. They had faced the impossible, and they had won. The balance of power had shifted, and Earth, once considered weak and vulnerable, had proven that even the smallest species could change the course of history.